Hey, how's it going? My name is Wes. Welcome back to another lesson. In today's lesson, we have another vocabulary lesson. And today we'll actually look at part 2 of our restaurant vocabulary lessons. So make sure to grab your notebook and get ready for this lesson. Now again, because the restaurant is such a big topic, there are so many different words and phrases that we can take a look at and learn. And so in today's lesson, we will look at quite a few words and phrases. So as always, what I recommend you to do is to first go over all of the different words and phrases that we will learn, just so that you have seen them once, so that hopefully your brain gets a bit more used to them, but then to pick and write down and learn only those words or phrases that you think are best for you to learn. So that is completely up to you, up to how much you want to learn, up to how deep you want to dive into this topic. Alright, so in today's lesson, El Restaurante, the restaurant, part 2 of our 3-part series. Alright, let's look at the first word that we will learn, which is the plate.
El plato. El plato.
And with plate, obviously, I mean like a food plate, so like a dish, like a plate. Alright, and then now, because we know el plato, we can say what is the typical dish or the typical plate, which is
¿Cuál es el plato típico? ¿Cuál es el plato típico?
what is the typical dish or what is the typical plate.
¿Cuál es el plato típico?
And again, as always, I'm sorry I keep repeating myself, but if we take a closer look at the word típico, we don't say típico or típico, but we say típico, and that is because the accent is on the I. Alright, so then the next phrase, which I actually use a lot because when I'm in a restaurant, sometimes I don't really want to look at the card too much and I just want to have someone recommend something to me. And so my favorite thing to ask is, what do you recommend me? Which in Spanish is,
¿Qué me recomienda? ¿Qué me recomienda?
what do you recommend me?
¿Qué me recomienda?
And then hopefully they will recommend you something very delicious. If not, I'm sorry. Alright, so the next word is the glass. And glass as in like a glass of water or a glass of juice, which in Spanish is
El vaso. El vaso.
and the V in vaso is not pronounced as a clear V. So it's not el vaso, but it's el vaso. Almost as if we're saying vaso with a B. So el vaso. The glass for water or juice. Because we can also say the glass when we're talking about a wine glass. So the wine glass is la copa.
La copa.
The glass.
La copa.
Or if we are talking about tea or coffee, in English we would say the cup. So not the glass of tea, but the cup of tea. Or the glass of coffee is the cup of coffee. In Spanish this is
La taza.
the cup.
La taza.
Right, so the next word is the cutlery, which is
Los cubiertos. Los cubiertos.
again, you don't have to learn all of these words. I recommend learning only the ones that fit your needs. So when we talk about the cutlery, we talk about the fork and a knife and a spoon in general, but we can also learn those separately. So the fork is
El tenedor. El tenedor.
the fork. The knife is
El cuchillo. El cuchillo.
the knife. And the spoon is
La cuchara. La cuchara.
alright, next word is a napkin.
Una servilleta. Una servilleta.
Alright, so now we are in the restaurant. We have the cutlery, a napkin, and a glass of wine or beer in front of us. And the waiter comes and he or she might ask us what we want to eat. And if you're like me and you're not particularly fast on deciding what you want to eat, then you could use this phrase.
Aún no he decidido. Aún no he decidido.
Which means I have not decided yet. And perhaps you want to ask, do you have this type of so-and-so? You can do this by saying tiene, which comes from the verb tener, which we already learned. Because tiene, as we learned, without the S at the end, so not tienes, but tiene, is used when we talk to someone in a formal way. So tiene, with the question marks, means do you have, in a formal way. So for example, you could say, do you have a vegan menu?
¿Tiene un menú vegano? ¿Tiene un menú vegano?
Do you have a vegan menu? And you can use this tiene not only for asking about food, but also for other things, such as, do you have another napkin, please?
¿Tiene otra servilleta, por favor? ¿Tiene otra servilleta, por favor? ¿Tiene otra servilleta, por favor?
Alright, so let's move on to the next word. The wine list.
La carta de vinos. La carta de vinos.
So then, when we are ready to order, we can say, I would like in a couple of different ways. The first one is,
Me gustaría.
and then you add after that whatever it is that you want to order. So for example, I would like the typical dish.
Me gustaría el plato típico. Me gustaría el plato típico.
Or as we learned before, we can also use the verb querer to say I want. So I want is
Quiero.
then another way of saying I would like, which actually more means something like could you give me, is
¿Me pones?
So for example, I would like a coffee, please. Or literally translated, you put me a coffee.
¿Me pones un café?
And this is a very common way to ask for a coffee, for example, and it's more of an informal way of asking for a drink. Or we could also say, I will take, which is
Tomaré.
I will take. And let's actually have a look at some other popular foods that you can order in a restaurant. So for example, the vegetables is
Las verduras.
the meat in Spanish is,
La carne.
but if we want to say specifically, for example, the beef, we say
La ternera.
the beef. Or if we want to say meat from a cow meat, we say
Carne de vaca.
meat of the cow, so cow meat.
Carne de vaca.
Or pork meat, which is
Carne de cerdo. Carne de cerdo.
meat of the pig, which in English we refer to as pork. Then of course we also have chicken, which in Spanish is
Pollo.
chicken. Or lamb.
Cordero.
And of course fish.
Pescado.
Or if you want to say seafood, so not just specifically fish, but seafood in general, you will often see this on a menu as mariscos, los mariscos.
Mariscos.
Seafood. Alright, and then drinks in Spanish, and I think we've already learned this, but drinks is bebidas.
Bebidas.
So on a menu you will see bebidas, and then you'll see a list of the drinks that the restaurant has. Alright, and then talking about that menu in Spanish, if you're looking for starters, usually there's 3 different ways that these are written on a menu.
Entradas. Entrantes. Primeros.
So those are the starters. Now sometimes you might be in for a little snacky. So snacking or for snacking in Spanish is referred to as
Para picar.
So you can expect to see this on a menu as a way of describing smaller snacks that you can order.
Para picar.
Then desserts in Spanish is
Postres.
desserts. And ice creams in Spanish is
Helados.
again with a soft H. So we don't say helados, we say helados. Ice cream. And that is actually the last word that we will learn in this vocabulary lesson. which honestly, in today's vocabulary lesson, we learned a lot of different words. So I'm sorry about that, but as I said before, the restaurant is just such a wide topic, such a broad topic that has so many words and phrases that we can talk about. So I hope that there were some useful words and phrases that you did not know yet that you can now use when you go to a restaurant. Now, as always, what's very helpful is this PDF file that you can download for free on my website, SpanishWithWes.com, which actually has all of the words and phrases of today's lesson bundled down into a single PDF file. So I really recommend you to download that on my website, SpanishWithWes.com. Of course, it's completely free to download. As always, I'll provide a link in the description below. Alright, so that's it for this lesson, the restaurant part 2 of 3, one more part to go. This was lesson number 24. In the next lesson, we will close this first chapter with lesson 25, in which we will talk a bit more about what tildes are and how they work. So I'm excited to see you in that next lesson. As for now, I want to say thank you very much, and I hope to see you in the next lesson. Adios.